The Bermuda Triangle, an ocean full of secrets.
Something which, even in this world of science, we cannot fully explain.
Ships disappear without trace.
There's a shipwreck there, there's a shipwreck there, there's another one right there. That's just kind of strange.
Airplanes mysteriously go missing. Stories of sea monsters and strange sightings.
When I entered the tunnel, these strange lines instantly formed.
The Bermuda Triangle. What's really going on there? The great myths of mankind. Mysteries passed on over thousands of years. Inexplicable events, places shrouded in legend and superhuman heroes. Even scientists are fascinated. Is there any truth to these ancient legends? Researchers across the globe are working hard to solve the greatest mysteries of our time. Bruce Gernon contributed a lot to the myth of the Bermuda Triangle. To this day, he cannot explain what happened to the US pilot almost 50 years ago.
On December 4th of 1970, my father and I were in Andros Island in the Bahamas. We were planning on leaving early in the morning to return to Palm Beach International Airport.
Bruce, who was 29 at the time, and his father often take this route. Perfect visibility, no wind. The two men don't have the slightest idea of what's to come.
When I lifted off, I looked at my wristwatch, and then I can remember the second hand actually struck 12, and it was exactly 3 o'clock.
In his Beechcraft Bonanza A36, Bruce takes off from Andros, the largest archipelago in the Bahamas, where he is headed northwest via Bimini to Palm Beach. The flight is supposed to take 80 minutes, ETA 4:20 p.m.
I reached the shoreline of Andros after flying for 10 minutes, and I could see that the storms weren't over the ocean of the Great Bahama Bank, so that looked good.
A sense of deception.
Then we noticed this strange cloud right in front of our flight path.
What is that in front of us?
It was about a mile long, half mile wide, and about 1,000 feet thick.
Clouds like this are extremely unusual at such low altitudes. Bruce pulls back the control wheel to veer.
So we went ahead and climbed up over it.
150 meters above the clouds, they lull themselves into a sense of security.
I didn't realize that this small lenticular-shaped cloud had expanded tremendously, and it was right below our airplane. I kept climbing. I'm on a direct flight to Bimini. Now I'm at, say, 5,000, and I'm inside the cloud, and then I break free. And I get it maybe 200 feet above it, and then the airplane wasn't climbing fast enough. And here it comes again, and I go back inside it.
Bruce climbs higher and higher to escape the surprising weather conditions.
When we got to 10,000 feet, that's about 5 times that I had gone in and out of this thing. And my dad said to me, we better turn around and go back to Andros.
With more than 600 flight hours under his belt, Bruce had never experienced anything like this, a force of nature.
Visibility inside that storm was only maybe 50 feet. We thought maybe we could keep going until these flashes started appearing. The deeper we went, the more intense flashes became, and it almost got to the point where it was like pure black. My dad was the expert navigator, so I asked him for a position fix.
Something's wrong.
And he goes, something's wrong.
I don't know where we are.
He couldn't tell where we were. And then I noticed that the magnetic compass, this was slowly spinning all by itself.
What happened to Bruce Gurn on that day? What forces are at play in the Bermuda Triangle?
The Bermuda Triangle myth is so special because it's a modern myth. It's something which, even in this world of science, we cannot fully explain, and therefore we are curious about it.
It's not the first report of this kind. Charles Lindbergh, the legendary transatlantic aviator, experienced something similar. On February the 13th, 1928, he takes off on a non-stop flight from Havana, Cuba, to his home, St. Louis, Missouri. In his logbook, Lindbergh notes,
both compasses malfunctioned over Florida Strait. The liquid compass card rotated without stopping. Could recognize no stars through heavy haze. Liquid compass card kept rotating until the Spirit of St. Louis reached the Florida coast.
So we know that the compass spun around uncontrollably. He wasn't able to navigate by the stars. And when he finally found out where he was 300 miles off course near Bahama Island.
It's the same mysterious phenomenon that pilot Bruce Gurn would come to describe 40 years later. The waters between Florida, Puerto Rico, and the Bermuda Islands have been shrouded in legend for centuries. In 1492, Christopher Columbus was the first European to cross this sea area with a surface of 1.3 million square kilometers. He reports of strange natural occurrences and unusual light phenomena.
Christopher Columbus certainly saw a strange light, and nowadays, with our understanding of science, we can say perhaps it was a meteorite, perhaps it was bioluminescence from fish, but Christopher Columbus didn't have that knowledge, so to him, it certainly was a mystery.
In the centuries that follow, hundreds of Spanish and Portuguese ships, many laden with gold, go missing. In the 19th century, the number of reports about ships mysteriously disappearing skyrockets. Later, these reports also include airplanes. Sailors call the region the Devil's Triangle, or the graveyard of the Atlantic. It was not until the second half of the 20th century that the waters north of the Caribbean, between Miami, Puerto Rico, and the Bermuda Archipelago, were famously dubbed the Bermuda Triangle. Over the last 100 years, more than 50 ships and 20 airplanes are said to have vanished here without a trace. The exact numbers are a matter of debate.
The Bermuda Triangle is a mystery because of the scale of the stories associated with it. 1,000 lives have all vanished in mysterious circumstances, and many questions do remain unanswered.
The Bermuda Islands. This is where the myth begins. Philippe Rouillard knows the underwater world like no other. The archaeologist is in charge of the observation and conservation of historic shipwreck sites surrounding the islands.
The thing about shipwrecks is that we forget, we sort of think of them romantically today, but actually a shipwreck is a tragedy, and some of which we know a lot about and some of which we know very little about. And of course, there's still many more to discover.
Discovering shipwrecks, mapping the sites, and analyzing the remains. For over 16 years, Philippe Rouillard has been studying sunken ships.
Every shipwreck is a mystery. And for all the ones that we know about in Bermuda, there's another 100 around the Bermuda platform that still haven't been found.
Along busy sea routes, it's not uncommon to have areas with many shipwrecks. Oftentimes, dozens of wrecks are found next to each other. But there's no place in the world with as many shipwrecks per square kilometre as the Bermuda region. Experts know of more than 100 sunken ships that have been plotted, but believe there could be more than 300.
You know, you can see we're in the middle of nowhere. And yet here we are literally looking over. There's a shipwreck there, there's a shipwreck there, there's another one right there. And that's just kind of strange.
Today, Philippe Rouillard and his team are exploring two well-known wrecks.
You never really get a full picture of what's down there. And, you know, and if you're gonna dive on a day like this and, you know, when the water's this clear and calm, that's particularly special.
About 8 kilometers off the coast, Philippe prepares for his dive. His research helps scientists gain an insight into the circumstances that caused the naval accidents. 10 meters down, the Montana, a wreck dating back to the Civil War era. The ship carried weapons for the Confederates.
There's a concentration of ships here that speak to something about Bermuda that's quite curious.
Directly nearby are the remains of the Constellation, a 1940s cargo ship transporting cement bags. Today, they serve as an artificial reef and are a breeding place for fish.
You know, if there is a mystery, it's why does everything happen in the same spots?
The large coral reef surrounding the archipelago provides a very natural explanation. It's easy to make out from the air, but not from the water. Since the 17th century, a busy trade route has been bringing thousands of ships to Bermuda. During this time, seafarers saw the island as a landmark or used it as a stopover on their way to the New World, a dangerous waterway.
What makes Bermuda's reef so dangerous is, in fact, these breakers, as we call them. And they literally come right up to the surface, but on a day like this, they sit just below. And by the time you see it, you're looking down, you're hitting the reef.
Hundreds of ships were likely doomed by the razor-sharp reefs. But this doesn't explain why there also have been ships that sank far off the reef.
One of the fundamental questions about the Bermuda Triangle is, you know, what is this mystery all about? And the mystery here is, well, it's solved. We know what happened. But there are many others where we don't.
The USS Cyclops is one of the unresolved cases. March the 3rd, 1918, World War I continues to rage on. It's the last time the large US Navy supply vessel is seen in the harbor of the Caribbean island of Barbados. The collier is carrying 10,000 tons of manganese ore to be used in munition manufactories along the US East Coast. More than 300 crew and passengers are on board. In the evening hours, the Cyclops weighs anchor and disappears into the night. She will never reach her port of destination, Baltimore. To this day, there is still no trace of what was once the US Navy's largest ship and crew. No radio messages, no distress signals, no signs of life.
The USS Cyclops became very important because she was such a big ship, and she was also a new ship. And because she was so big, the real mystery was, where did she go?
Over 100 years later, author Marvin Barish is still intrigued by the disaster, not least for personal reasons.
I remember when I was a young boy, my father used to tell me about his uncle who was lost on a Navy ship in the First World War. So I began to get into family history research. I started peeling back all the layers of the onion and started finding out a lot more than I ever thought I would know.
What happened to the USS Cyclops? Construction plans, freight reports, pictures. Marvin Barash collects any piece of information he can find.
Following the war, the U.S. Navy published a document that listed all the ships that were lost. The Cyclops was the only ship that right across the page was listed as mysteriously disappeared.
In their official report, the U.S. Navy concludes, there has been no more baffling mystery in the annals of the Navy than the disappearance of the USS Cyclops. It seems unlikely that the ship was sunk by German submarines. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops makes headlines. How can a ship this massive simply vanish into thin air?
Part of the fame to do with the event was also associated with the war. So she was lost during the war, and there was a great deal of fear over what the Germans might be doing with their U-boats. And although the Cyclops was not in waters that should have been fought over, perhaps the Germans were operating U-boats there. So there's a lot of fear associated with the war, which made this myth so powerful.
Suddenly, everyone starts talking about the insidious waters. Rumors link German saboteurs, supernatural forces, and even giant sea monsters to its disappearance. Marvin Barash is convinced there's a much simpler explanation for the fate of the USS Cyclops.
Well, the main business of the USS Cyclops was this: coal. Tons of this coal. On a final voyage, the business was a lot heavier. Manganese. Lifting the two side by side. This is like a feather. This is business.
10,000 tons of manganese ore in the hold, and the freight report reveals they had exceeded this amount by over 85 tons.
The ship was well documented as having a stability issue. You have a lot of cargo on board that nobody had any experience with, and was it loaded correctly? The people that loaded the cargo take into consideration the balance. It's just like a formula for a disaster. They're just waiting for the right time.
The ship's structural engineering was probably not the only problem. Marvin Barash has discovered another lead in the documents.
The USS Cyclops had two engines, a port engine, a starboard engine. The starboard engine broke. This is probably a significant factor as to why the ship was lost, just not having the power maybe to fight off a storm or other sea conditions.
During hurricane season, the Bermuda Triangle is often subject to major changes in the weather, which can be dangerous for even the most experienced seafarers.
There's this U.S. Weather Bureau chart that indicates that there's a large weather system on the east coast of the United States that could have indeed traveled with this large low system into the area where the Cyclops was on her way home. So weather was probably a major factor in her disappearance.
But if the USS Cyclops was in distress, why didn't she call for help? And why has no wreckage been found?
I suspect a rogue wave, the type of thing that would not have been anticipated. Without warning, no time to prepare, and I suspect likely at night.
Could one single huge wave really swallow a mighty cargo vessel? For centuries, sailors spoke about waves as high as mountains coming out of nowhere, dragging ships under. For a long time, their reports were dismissed as being nothing more than a sailor's yarn. But today's scientists are sure they exist. Waves up to 30 meters high, known to seafarers as rogue or monster waves.
Big fish and big wave myths have been told for as long as humans have been at sea. And scientists have long wanted to dismiss the possibility of these gargantuan waves that are talked about at pubs and fishing ports. But recent science has confirmed the existence of these rogue waves.
The Coastal Research Center in Hanover, Germany. Here, scientists are taking a closer look into the destructive power of the rogue waves. From inside a wave channel 310 meters long, the largest of its kind.
I wanted to see, just like in the video, which one's the right wave length when placing the boat in the water.
Can one single wave sink a large ship like the USS Cyclops? Or even a modern container ship?
When you make really short waves, the boat would respond in a similar way, plunge into the trough of the wave.
Stefan hopes an experiment will lead to answers.
Our wave machine basically allows us to produce any kind of wave, like single waves to simulate tsunamis, or rogue waves, as in this case.
Monster waves develop when several swells of different lengths overlap. Long waves travel faster and can overtake shorter waves. As the wave heights combine, they become a rogue wave.
Rogue waves can occur very suddenly. This means they can basically form at any place at any time by pure chance. And they vanish just as rapidly as they came.
Using a model ship, the researchers demonstrate the impact of a rogue wave. The team simulates rough sea conditions using the hydraulic wave machine. While the waves cause the ship to bob up and down, it's not in any danger yet.
The waves were 40 centimeters high. In nature, this would equal a wave height of 12 meters. That's quite a storm.
Now they'll conduct the rogue wave test.
Monster waves are defined as being extremely high and extremely short at the same time. Matthias, you can start the wave now. Okay, wave coming up.
Within seconds, a deadly wall of water has built up. By the time the ship's crews have spotted the wave, it's already too late.
What we could see here was how the ship first got sucked into that deep trough preceding the wave. And then it got pushed up. After essentially being capsized by the wave crashing down.
The crew had no chance to send out a distress signal.
If that had happened in real life, there probably wouldn't have been any survivors.
Did the USS Cyclops fall victim to a similar rogue wave? The sunken ship falls into oblivion. But in 1941, during World War II, the sister ships of the USS Cyclops, Proteus and Nereus, disappear. Both were carrying ore. Wild speculations are spreading. Newspapers talk about the Sea of Doom. Experts disagree on what really happened to the two sister ships. One thing is certain. The design of the freighters made them potentially dangerous vessels for the crew at rough sea. Anywhere, not just in the Bermuda Triangle. Just 4 years later, yet another tragedy draws public attention to the mysterious waters. An entire squadron disappears for no apparent reason. Around noon on December the 5th, 1945, 5 US torpedo bombers take off from their base in Florida. The weather is good. It's a routine training flight, targeted bombing and navigating above open water. Halfway into it, the flight leader reports difficulties with his compass. The pilots lose orientation. Soon after, their radio transmissions end. To this day, all 14 crew members and their bombers have yet to be found.
Flight 19 became so famous because it wasn't just one plane, it wasn't just one ship, it was 5 planes. It was an entire squadron, and they were never found.
Sylvia Riley, pilot and author, investigates the mysterious disappearance of Flight 19. Back in the 1940s, navigating a plane was much more of a challenge than it is today.
We can see all the instruments here that they were really looking at. So you've got the compass up top, you've then got the directional indicator, which you're setting in line with your compass. You've got a clock there that you use to time each leg. You can see your indicated airspeed. So you're using the time that you're flying and the speed that you are flying, and you multiply them to get the distance. And that's how you work out your location.
Berlin. Sylvia Riley sets out to reenact the military training operation using a flight simulator.
Foxtrot Tango 28 departing. So we're now departing from Fort Lauderdale, heading straight to the east. We'll just take off and start climbing. Flaps up, and now we're heading straight out over the Atlantic. Now, because we're in an Airbus A320, I'm able to set the power to go automatically and the autopilot on, and the autopilot is now doing almost everything for me. If you were in a 1940s plane, you would have none of this. You are flying by dead reckoning.
Riley turns off the electronic instruments to simulate the flight conditions of the squadron 75 years ago.
There's all these alarms going off and tones, and I have lost my map. Okay, the pilots of the flight also didn't have a map or the different gadgets that we've now turned off here. So at this point, this is similar to the situation that they were in, but they were probably a little bit better than I am at it.
Flight 19 got into trouble when the compass stopped working, and then the weather deteriorated on top of that. Sylvia Riley simulates the situation.
The wind is getting worse, which means a magnetic compass bounces around. It's not really easy to use. Even with that still working, I would be hard-pressed to know whether I was going due north or not. If I'm worried that my compass isn't working, it's very nerve-wracking, and at this point, personally, I have no idea where we are.
The brewing storm makes it impossible for the pilots of Flight 19 to know where they're going.
The sun is setting, so I'm hoping that that is west. But because of this weather, it's difficult to really feel confident about that. And it's just impossible to really know where I am.
The machines have been up in the air for 4 hours. They're running out of fuel, and there's no land in sight. Sylvia Riley ends up in the same situation.
At this point, I'm out of fuel. I can't climb. The only thing I can do is try and come down gently, but there's high waves out there and a thunderstorm. There's no way I'm going to land on this water. I'm going to freeze to death if it's gone. We crashed. That was so realistic, that was frightening. I am so relieved that this is a simulation. I never want to have to go through that in real life. This was such a high-stress situation, using every bit of my mental powers just then, just to try and keep a plane in the air. How much worse must it be when you know that not just your life, but the life of 14 people are dependent on your making the right decision right now?
Navy flying boats try to localize the missing squadron. After searching for hours, they give up. One of the machines calls in a radio message. Moments later, it also disappears without a trace. The 14 young men of Flight 19 and their bombers are missing to this day. Sylvia Riley has a theory on what exactly happened. A fateful decision by flight leader Charles Taylor might have caused the men to fly further and further out to sea.
The Navy investigation is very useful. So one thing we've got here is the original transcript. We have exactly what Foxtrot Tango 28 said whilst in the air to his other pilots. So he's continuously modifying the instructions for the squadron to head towards the east, when the entire time what they needed to do was go west.
As they run out of fuel, the pilots are left with one option: an emergency landing on the water. At rough sea, this is a death sentence. No wreckage from Flight 19 has ever been found.
Even today, after plane crashes, we do not always find all the wreckage. There are natural explanations for this, for example, that they've sunken down to the bottom of the sea where they've been covered by sand, or that they have broken to pieces so small that they can no longer be identified as wreckage.
But there are unanswered questions to this day. Why did the flight leader become so disoriented? And why didn't his compass work?
There's only a very few true mysteries that are connected to the Bermuda Triangle, but Flight 19 is absolutely one of them. I find it amazing that with so many people interested, with the mystery that started the Bermuda Triangle and from which so many of our Bermuda Triangle myths are created, that we still don't know what happened, that there's just no way of finding out an answer. And I find that bewildering, but also fascinating.
The report from the US Navy's final investigation states, the disappearance of Flight 19 is one of the greatest mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. A legend is born.
Flight 19 is such a powerful part of the myth, partly because it was the loss of a group of young men who mythically become heroes, and they are the main characters in this particular saga. So as a consequence, they have huge power.
Hollywood capitalizes on the story. Author Charles Berlitz writes a bestseller. The whole world is captivated by the enigmatic events taking place in the Sea of Doom.
The Bermuda Triangle first became popular when the American author Charles Berlitz wrote a book in the 1970s. Some 20 million copies were sold. It was translated into 30 different languages, and he identified a number of alleged incidents which happened in the Bermuda Triangle. The problem was, however, that a lot of Charles Berlitz's evidence was wrong.
And indeed, many of Charles Berlitz's examples are fake news. Statistics show there are just as many accidents in the Bermuda Triangle as in any other highly frequented maritime area. But the myth takes on a life of its own. Soon, rumors spread saying aliens or the crystal energy from the lost city of Atlantis are responsible for the sinking of countless planes and ships.
Many people don't want to believe in a world without miracles because this, conscious or not, means that it's a world without soul or free will. And so we project our desire for there to be a soul or free will onto a desire for there to be miracles and odd events. If this strange stuff can't happen there, then maybe it can't happen anywhere.
What's not a myth are the compass anomalies often experienced in the Bermuda Triangle. They're real. But what causes these interferences? For decades, scientists were in the dark about this. Today, they've found a plausible explanation at the bottom of the sea. The Bermuda Islands are the remnants of an ancient volcano that formed more than 30 million years ago. Witnesses of an apocalyptic moment in the history of our planet. Nick Hutchings explores this region.
If we were standing in this exact spot 33 million years ago, we would be under 3,000 feet of lava. This was a big volcanic island then.
Over millions of years, the volcanic rock is eroded by wind and weather and washed into the sea.
It probably took about 19 million years to erode away down to nothing, down to sea level. Most of that is now spread out around Bermuda.
Today, a layer of lava sand 150 meters thick covers the ocean floor around the islands. Hutchings believes the volcanic floor could explain some of the phenomena observed in the Bermuda Triangle.
You can see it very clearly here now, this black sand. This is the volcanic remains of the old volcanic island. This is really the only place that we can see this now up on dry land. The rest of it is all washed into the sea and is in a big layer. And in that layer is about 500 billion tons of magnetite. And magnetite is the most magnetic, naturally occurring mineral on Earth. And the magnetite in these heavy minerals here, this is enough to affect a compass, just this little bit here. And as you can see, as we move the compass over here, it moves. It's not a lot, 3 or 4 degrees, but that'd be enough to cause a disaster. You can imagine what 500 billion tons might do.
Official nautical charts warn seafarers of compass anomalies with deviations of up to 14 degrees.
I mean, essentially, Bermuda is just a huge magnet sitting right out in the middle of the ocean.
Conventional magnetic compasses have been known to suddenly point in a different direction. This can cause ships and planes to go off course or accidentally fly into storms. This likely explains many disasters. Yet the myth of the Bermuda Triangle lives on. For some, it's more about believing than knowing.
The Bermuda Triangle myth persists partly because scientists haven't been able to categorically explain what happens in the triangle, and therefore it's fulfilling the function of all myths throughout the time, and that is to explain the inexplicable.
Like the experience of Bruce Gernon and his dad on their flight from the Bahamas to Palm Beach on December the 4th, 1970. At 3,500 meters altitude, the aircraft is suddenly surrounded by a mysterious cloud.
And then I see this horizontal tunnel. But I thought that would be the only way to escape the inside of the storm. When I entered the tunnel, these strange lines instantly formed. And then I noticed that the lines were slowly rotating counterclockwise, and they went all the way to the other end of the tunnel. All the navigational instruments were malfunctioning. Even the compass was slowly spinning all by itself.
The plane disappears from the air traffic control radars.
The Miami radio couldn't find our location, so my dad got on the radio and he said, "What do you mean you can't find our location?" And he started cussing at the guy, which is something that he's never done before.
Trying to get out of the tunnel, Bruce Gernon pushes a 300-horsepower machine to its limits.
When I looked back after we got out of the tunnel, I watched it collapse right behind us. And at the same time, I felt this incredible sensation of zero gravity combined with the feeling of hydroplaning, like skidding forward at zero gravity. The air traffic controller comes back on the radio and he's really excited. And he says he's got an airplane directly over Miami Beach. And so I look at my watch and, well, I've been flying just over 33 minutes. I told him, no, that's not us. And then my eyes started to focus. And I look below and there's Miami Beach right below us, and we're at 10,000 feet.
Once Bruce Gernon reaches Palm Beach as planned and checks the time, he realizes that only 47 minutes have passed since takeoff.
I had made that identical flight at least a dozen times on a direct course, and it took an hour and 20 minutes. And this was an indirect course, maybe 50 miles longer, and it took only 47 minutes. So I didn't quite understand what had happened, but I realized that something amazing had happened.
Bruce Gernon believes he got sucked into a time tunnel. To this day, there is still no evidence corroborating his theory. But he's not the only one who believes in mysterious unknown forces. John Cusack has been investigating mysterious events in the Bermuda Triangle for over 30 years. He was the first to systematically study the accident reports of the U.S. Transportation Safety Board.
This is the entire computer database printout at the National Transportation Safety Board from 30 years ago, when I made a request for them to give me a database search of all aircraft listed as missing or not recovered.
Nowadays, the records are available in digital form. The database lists every incident that took place in U.S. airspace since 1964.
What's important is to compare cases and data over a long period of time instead of just one incident and speculating on it. I discovered aircraft that had vanished while coming in for a landing on radar, that had essentially eyewitnesses, and that vanished close to shore, that vanished over shallow water and left no wreckage.
Cusack claims he has identified 75 mysterious events in the database that happened in the Bermuda Triangle.
It's not subjective, like sighting Bigfoot or flying saucers or Loch Ness Monster. These were real aircraft and real ships. They're in the records. The people were really aboard them, and they all vanished.
Like Flight NH-3808, a light sport aircraft flown by Maldonado Torres and his friend Jose Pagan Santos.
One of the most interesting cases is the documented case of the encounter with a UFO. This was on June 28, 1980. This was an air coupe, a twin-engine small light aircraft that was owned by the passenger's father. That's the passenger. The aircraft is presumed ditched at sea, and both occupants deceased. And the transcript was completely preserved. And here it is.
Cusack has the radio messages.
This is Jose Maldonado Torres and Pagan Santos' last words, were they transposed into mystery. This is the Mayday he sent off Puerto Rico.
June the 28th, 1980, the two men are on their way from Santo Domingo to San Juan in a small sports aircraft when they suddenly see an unidentified flying object. The pilot tries repeatedly to get away from the object, but to no avail.
You're listening to a man die, basically, or more accurately, transpose into mystery.
It's the last time anyone heard from the men. After that message, their aircraft vanishes from the radar. Nobody knows what the two men encountered. The ultimate fate of flight NH3808 remains unknown to this day. Time and again, reports and videos surface, allegedly documenting similar encounters with UFOs. An amateur video taken aboard a cruise ship in the Bermuda Triangle in 2009.
Okay, 2 UFOs on the damn, what ship we on? What boat is this?
Carnival Sensation.
Carnival Sensation. What's the date?
It's the 1st of October.
October the 1st, 2009. 2 fucking UFOs. One of them moving to the left. Look, come here. This one on the left is moving. Come check it out. Look. Are you watching? There's a helicopter. There's an airplane in the clouds up to the right. For perspective to see how low these things are. Look at the one on the right moving. It's disappeared. You see it?
Well, it's very commonplace what they're reporting. Lights floating on the horizon. He mentions that they're pacing the ship.
Look at the one on the right moving. It's disappeared. You see it? Just went away. Now the one on the left is still here.
Oh my God.
It's impossible to prove the authenticity of the footage, just as it remains unclear what it really shows. But to Kusar, online findings like this support his theories.
They put this up on YouTube, and so it seems authentic. You know, it's reporting things that are commonly known. It's reported since the earliest UFO investigations that when aircraft approach these, they'll wink out or zip away. And that's the case here. An aircraft is approaching on the right of the screen, and then the one closest to it zips out.
Ufologists like Kusar can now even refer to official US government releases. Recently, the US Navy declassified footage supposedly documenting encounters between UFOs and their fighter jets.
Remarkably, the Pentagon released the footage of all this. It's just yet another sighting that Pentagon is refreshingly admitting to.
People have tried to explain UFO sightings like these. Theories range from weather balloons to hang gliders and secret weapon systems. John Kusar doesn't have a logical explanation for the events either, but he doesn't believe in little green men.
The ships and planes do vanish, and they obviously have a cause. And so if you uncover real mystery, it should be considered a little more unnerving because there's a real cause behind it that you have to deal with.
A dark cloud, malfunctioning instruments, and a mysterious time tunnel. Now, Bruce Gernon thinks he knows what happened to him 50 years ago above the Bermuda Triangle.
It took me 30 years of researching this, thinking about it every day, before I finally came up with the theory that this fog, and I call it electronic fog, connects to the aircraft. If it attaches to you, you can become disoriented, and it can induce spatial disorientation into your mind.
A theory without any evidence, but Gernon is convinced it will be proven one day.
It's been tough sometimes when people try to debunk me, but I'm always willing to talk to anybody that wants to challenge me about it, because I know exactly what happened. So this is an incredible event that happened, so it's going to take incredible proof to prove it. And I know it'll be proven in the future. It may be another 50 years or so.
The Bermuda Triangle, a place for speculation of every kind.
The Bermuda Triangle doesn't stand out statistically as much as it stands out in our imaginations. It becomes a place where we project whatever our myth is. If your myth is that everything's explainable, you're projecting that onto the Bermuda Triangle. If your myth is that there are aliens or Atlantis, that also is then going to be what you project onto the Bermuda Triangle.
Whether it's a dark force or a force of nature, paranormal activity or physical forces, people won't stop trying to solve the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. And the myth is sure to be the subject of wild speculations and extraordinary theories in the years to come.